Welcome back to the DHD Racing podcast. Today we're going to talk about season 5 of Drive to Survive.
hmm
So,
Yay! I'm
who
so
wants to go
excited.
first? What do you want to talk about first?
I think Holly should go first.
Me.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanna open with where the season opened, which is
Uh-huh.
Haas. I want to start with Haas because I think that whole first episode with I didn't realize how much of a fan of Kevin Magnussen I was until I watched that episode. And I want all the best things for him. I think it was such a good, like I was so into it. I was so into it because I knew obviously that he did well in that first race, but just like actually watching it unfold and like the stress that he must have been under to have I didn't realize that he'd come back from like basically no practice really, and then was
Yeah.
like the week before straight into the seat, and then he goes and pulls that out of the bag in a Haas.
Honestly, yeah.
So good.
I didn't realize how much I was like entertained by Gunter until this season. He's so funny and I didn't realize it.
Just having both, was it Bonotto and
Yeah,
Steiner
I
in
was gonna
the
say,
Fiat?
why were
I loved
they
it.
what like I loved it, but why were they on like some cute date in the mountains? What was going on?
It was
like
just
couples
Absolutely
holiday.
bonkers.
two
But that's how
Italian
the
men,
episode started.
two Italian men in an Italian car driving in a city.
Having a
Like, what
picnic
more could
date.
you want? But it
Having a
was just
lovely
so bizarre.
picnic.
Don't Haas use Haas and Ferrari have a relationship, don't they, in terms of like and so one of them supplies engines to
Haas
the other or
uses
something.
Yeah.
Ferrari's engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I loved that whole bit. You could see when they couldn't have Mazepin back, you could see how like frustrated Gunter was, and he was just sort of like,
Mm.
everything falls down on our luck, like or everything always goes wrong for us. And then it turned out really,
Mm.
I think, to be the best thing that could have happened to them. Like
I
imagine if they still
agree.
had
Definitely.
Mazepin.
I agree, honestly. Oh
So
my
do I.
gosh.
It was
Like,
so it was so good.
K-Mag has really turned it around for Haas.
Yeah.
I think so, and it's like because I was watching Pit Stop with when Wilbox was talking about Nick DeVries and the benefit of like experience and age. And I think,
Mm.
yeah, it shows like compared to Haas with two rookies, bringing in this driver who's got these years of experience and like it shows like even with a year off, the fact that he was able to come in and start off that strong, just like the benefit of having that experience. And
Experienced
how
drivers, yeah.
supportive he was of Mick, I thought was nice in the show as well.
Yeah.
Like there's that bit where he's sort of saying something like, "Oh, he can do it. He just needs to like get his confidence
There
up and
were
just get a good
there are
results."
like mixed like I'm a bit biased. I'm coming as a hardcore Mick Schumacher fan. I do think there were some things where he was a bit rude about Mick, but there were some things where he praised Mick. But that's in some ways understandable. You're not going to love someone 100% of the time. But I think
Especially when you
sometimes,
are competing as well.
yeah.
Mm.
But there were are we hold on. I think I confused myself. Are we talking about K-Mag or Steiner about Mick?
K-Mag. I'm not.
Okay,
I
I'm
think
gonna stop talking because I was talking about Steiner.
no. Did you think I was talking about Gunter?
Oh yeah,
Team
I thought
Principal?
we were talking about
Yeah,
Gunter.
no. We can get on that. No, I was talking about K-Mag because there are a couple
Okay.
of I'm
He was
talking
like
about
he was defending him.
When like Gunter was criticizing Mick, there were scenes where Kevin was like, "You've just got to give him a bit
Yeah.
more time and he'll pull through."
He would be
But
the
yeah.
one defending Mick.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
I love that.
Moving on to your point though, I love him. I love Steiner. I think he is hilarious, but also there were points when he was criticizing Mick where I was just sort of like
Give him a
it's
break.
I don't know, it
Yeah.
seems a little bit it's like the moment that things weren't working out. And it happened before as well with when he fired Grosjean and K-Mag at the same time and then brought in two
Mm.
rookies and everything went worse. It seems like I might be wrong about this, but it seems like he makes quite a lot of reactionary decisions. Like things stop working and immediately
Yeah.
he's like, we need two new drivers. When in
Yeah.
the past, I feel like it's quite clear that the problem I don't think was the drivers. In that scenario, I think
They were like Grosjean sometimes didn't
I know
always
Grosjean
do
has the crashes, and then obviously
incredible,
Kevin
but
slammed the door and stuff.
yeah.
But
So like I just the way that he just was with Mick in the like obviously it's dramatized. I don't know fully what's gone down between
Mm.
Steiner and Mick, but it did. I was like, oh no, don't talk about him like that.
It was,
like so mean. And
it
like the
was a
fact
little
that
bit
like
harsh.
when I think it was Jeddah that this crash was at, but like I can't quite remember, I could be wrong. When Mick had that really bad, I think it was during qualifying at Jeddah, Mick crashed quite badly, and immediately Gunther's on the phone to Gene Haas, not even caring if Mick is okay, but
Mm.
being like, this is going to cost us so much money. Like, can you believe that Mick would do this? And I'm like, well, it was an accident. Like, he didn't crash there on purpose.
Right.
And it also was quite a dangerous accident. And I was like, where's your sympathy? He might have provided that sympathy and we just didn't see it on Drive to Survive. But I just
That's
do
the
think he
thing.
was a little bit harsh about things. And that whole Mick episode, I did correct.
I feel like I do see where he's coming from though. Whereas like in a team like Haas, you can't really afford to stick with something if it's not been working for quite a while.
That is true.
I can see where he's coming from, whereas other teams would be willing to be like let's wait it out a little bit. But in a team like Haas, you can't really afford that.
Yeah.
So like I can see both sides.
Yeah.
I
No, I
just sort
agree.
of wonder how, and I know again, it's like you're saying they can't sort of give these super long contracts to like rookies, but I bet the stress of it doesn't help. Like if you know that knowledge of if you don't perform, you will be out, must be such a horrific thing to have to go into each race and kind of try and perform with.
Yes, that's the thing. It would mess with your quality of like performance. It like you wouldn't be able to put your best foot forward. You'd be like distracted and worried. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, how are we feeling about Haas? Because I wasn't really on board until I watched Drive to Survive, and I'm so on board with them now. And I remember K-Mag getting pole as well. I can't remember what race it was, but that clip of him getting pole, I so hope that they do well. It looks like they've got a good car. So I hope.
Yeah.
I kind of love them as a team. I hope they do well.
I'm
the car
excited.
looks great. We've spoken about this.
Yeah.
The car looks great.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Right. So
excited.
what do other people want to bring up? We've done Haas. I do have my little list if no one can think of anything.
There was a moment. We're gonna jump to the very end of the season, but there was a moment I thought was just so evil from Netflix where they sit Charles down and they ask him, how do you think the season went? Or something like that. Like that kind of question. How did the season go? And then it cuts to him crashing.
It was the one in France,
It cuts
isn't
to
it?
him swerving.
It's the one in France. It was I remember watching that and having to be like, because I was so surprised that they didn't bring up France. I really thought they were going to have, because that seemed like such a turning point for Ferrari. I thought for sure they were going to have it in Ferrari's episode, and they didn't. And I was like, what are they saving this for? Someone must have pitched that in the boardroom of Netflix, and they were like saving that clip to use in that way.
So evil.
I
wish they had focused on that a bit more.
Do you guys remember which race it was that Carlos's car caught fire?
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like they didn't talk about that, but I can't remember.
They only put it in very briefly at the end of the season.
And
at the end of episode
I remember
10.
watching that and like screaming. I was at the pub, and there was these two guys in front, and they were like, "He's gonna get out. It's okay," but he wasn't getting out of the car, and I was like, "Get out, Carlos! Get out! Get out! Get out!" Like I was like full on screaming, and
it was scary.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
I think it might have been Austria. It was on a hill. I remember that.
Yeah, it was on a hill because the car kept rolling back.
They barely showed it.
Yeah. Sorry, I completely changed the subject, but
no. We're on the subject of Ferrari disasters, so
yeah. No, I was so surprised because I remember watching. I mean, obviously France wasn't too long after I started watching the season, but just looking back at how I know how things went, that crash in France, I think was sort of the end of it for Ferrari. Like I know they were still technically in contention after that, but I think that crash was the moment when everybody sort of went like, they're not getting it.
Yeah,
that was like the moment when they lost that sort of 25 points. So yeah, like I was sort of surprised that they saved it for that little moment at the end, because when I was thinking about it, it seemed like such a big turning point.
They could have done a whole episode on it.
You're right. It was such a like evil choice.
Oh my god! I literally was sat there in shock. I can't believe they did that. But yeah. Speaking of Ferrari disasters, the Ferrari episode was madness. It was. Because obviously I didn't watch any of this stuff in real time. And just the amount of like really silly mistakes that even I could tell that's not a good idea. Like when they would choose to pit at like really strange times, even I could tell that wasn't a good idea. I couldn't believe that they'd actually made those decisions.
It's like when they decide, when they tell him to pit, so he goes into
And
the
he
pit lane,
says,
and they go, don't pit, no. And then he's
"Oh
like,
my God, stay
it's
out,
too
stay
late.
out."
I'm in the pit lane. Like,
And sometimes they would tell him things and he'd be like, I'm not sure about this, but I can't disagree. So if you think it's going to be good, then I'll do it. Like he would say, like either one of the drivers, they would say, I'm not quite sure about this, but okay.
But this is like, this is kind of a random point, but it's still related. I remember thinking this at the time because Ferrari would do this, and then I just want to flip this to Mercedes and George Russell in particular, because if the team said something to George would be like, "I have this idea. What do you think about this?" And then they'd like go with what George said because George is the one out there racing.
George is the one in the car, right?
George is the one in the car. So sometimes, like obviously, you have your strategists. Like sometimes you should do what they say. Like they know they're doing their job. They know what they're doing. Sometimes with Ferrari, that's not quite the case. So sometimes I do think it is a good idea to listen to what the driver has to say and listen to what they think you should do when or what everyone should do because they're the ones in the car. They know what's going on.
Right.
Obviously, that's not always true. If we go back to, I want to say it was, oh my God, where was it? Where was it that Lando nearly got his first win?
Oh, I don't know that.
Oh,
was it Russia?
I
think it might have been Russia.
There was rain. He almost got his first.
He was rain, and he said they told him to pit, and he said no. So there were times when like maybe you shouldn't listen to a driver because, for example, that happened, and then Lando didn't win the race. But there are times that you like the drivers do know what they're talking about, and they like, and maybe you should listen to them.
I feel like you go first, Holly. Let me.
I was just gonna say to keep it on like Ferrari. It reminded me of at Silverstone when Carlos got his first win. He almost didn't, right? Because they'd made some decision that had affected Charles' race, so he was slowing down. Carlos was coming up behind him, and then Carlos was like, "I'm going faster, let me pass." And then the Ferrari were
they were like, "Don't fight him."
They said focus on defending from Hamilton, and Carlos was like, he was like, "Screw that!" Like I'm not doing
and he
that.
just did it. Yeah.
I remember watching that, thinking like, how are you doing this? Because you've already sort of slowed Leclerc down. You've got one driver who's clearly still capable of winning this. Why would you not tell them to swap? Why would you not let them fight even? Like it made no sense to me because Lewis was clearly catching up as well. Carlos knew that, and that's why he was even
that's why he just went ahead and did it.
Yeah,
because he knew it was hopeless.
This is like so interesting to me because Silverstone is technically a race I haven't watched because I was there. I had the full intention of rewatching the race so that I could actually know what was going on.
It's a really good
from my usual perspective rather than the perspective that I had. So I didn't know any of this. I just saw that I didn't know that Ferrari had said no.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting.
I've always wondered what it's like to actually be in the crowd because you don't get to hear any of the radio messages.
You hear nothing. You hear nothing. You just see the cars go past, and you're like, "Wow, this is so cool!" But you have no clue actually what's going on. There's no signal. There's absolutely no signal, so you can't even like go on your phone and like have like the race
stream.
Yeah, or like have like on the F1 app,
like an update.
Sometimes, or on Twitter or something. You have no signal. At least where I was sitting, you had no signal. I'm just gonna blame Northampton as a whole for not having signal. I was sat on Northampton's side anyway, so I'm just gonna blame it all on Northampton. We're allowed to do that.
We're from Northampton.
We're all from Northampton. We're allowed to do
Nobody
that.
else is allowed to talk bad about Northampton.
No, only us three. Only us three. So we had no signal, and so it's like I think I mentioned this. I can't remember if I mentioned this in the previous episode, but with the Zhou crash, I don't think I did actually. I just sent you guys voice notes separately.
Oh my God.
I had no idea what was going on because all I saw was George Russell had stopped out on track,
Mm.
and that was all I saw on the screen. So I turned to Hannah and I'm like, why are they just not getting? Why are they just not moving George's car? Like, he's just stopped. Like, why aren't they getting a crane out or something, or like moving his car? We
Yeah.
waited an hour, and everyone around me was also like going like, why aren't they just moving George's car? Like, what's the big deal? We had no idea about
Because
the
you
crash.
don't, yeah.
We didn't see it. We didn't, because it happened in such a small amount of time. We were looking, so like, because we knew that we were only a couple of corners away from where the accident was, we were all looking to the right, being like, oh my god, they're going to come in a second, they're going to come in a second. So nearly everyone around me missed the crash on the screen because we were all busy like being like, oh my god, the car's coming.
Yeah.
So then like they eventually showed the shown
The
like,
replay.
the replay, and that's when we saw that Zhou had crashed, and we were like, oh my god, that's why I've been sat here for so long, because Zhou crashed. But for ages, like, no one knew, and everyone was trying to go online, like, finding out what was going on, like why it was taking so long for them to move George's car. And that was just because we had no idea about Zhou. So you do miss things. Like,
I feel like they should play announcements on speakers.
They do,
in the
but the cars are too loud to hear
Too
over
loud.
the speakers. Like, even when they're not near you, you can't hear the speakers. The speakers are too
Yeah.
far away. I think if they had the speakers like behind
That's
you,
what I'm saying,
like in
like,
the grandstands,
that's
then
what I'm
that
saying.
would-
Like, actually in the stands,
but they're
they should
not.
have
They are
speakers.
the other side of the track from where you're sitting.
Oh, well, obviously you're not going to hear that. Yeah.
I kind of love that they used the whole scenario with the crash to like introduce Zhou just as a drive to survive, and they had that bit where he sat down. I thought that was quite a cool.
I thought that was a
ending.
good.
It was like a hey, here I am. Like, you're definitely.
I think it was a good choice from Netflix to do it like that. I
love him as well. I think he's really cool. So I was glad that he got like a good moment to sort of come in.
Definitely.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else like in relation to Ferrari or.
I was gonna say that, you know how when we were saying about feel free to cut this out. I was gonna say, well, you know, when we were talking about how some teams listen to their drivers, but Ferrari don't really. I feel like that was just like Mattia's style, because you know the photo that they do every year with the team principal and then the drivers. And I feel like if you look at the photo from last year and the photo from this year, both the drivers look much more relaxed this year than they did last year. I feel like that was just Mattia's style of it was very, you will listen to what I will do because I'm the team principal, you know? And like, this is not shading him. He was very slay in Drive to Survive, but I feel like in the team that might have been different.
I think it's interesting that with the whole like listening to the team strategy calls is that towards the end of the season, Charles Leclerc stopped doing that. Like, there were a couple of instances where they gave strategy calls, and like in the last couple of races that he just went no. And it was like the first time, I remember it was notable because I'm sure it was like the first couple of times that he'd done it. Carlos was basically doing it the whole season, but Charles didn't until like the last couple of races at the end. So I think he got to a point where he was like, I don't trust you. I mean, and that's got to be a point, right? Because when you've had your race ruined by your own team that many times,
so many times as well,
and like so many times, it's not just even the race being like ruined, but that they were about to win.
That's
they would have won this race, and then their own team ruined it.
So many times he has been leading the race, and then something happens, and he does not finish. Like, for that to happen to you that many times, there has to be a point that he was just like, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
I mean, I just remember, I can't remember which race it was, but there was a race where there was like a set of tires that everyone knew weren't running well that particular weekend or something. Charles goes in, they put the hards on. I think it was the hard tire. He drives out, immediately slows down, gets overtaken. I think he finished fourth or something. And I remember he was like annoyed about that as well at the end. And I remember it because in the like sort of Max Verstappen's podcast, like post race room with the podium finishers, somebody asked, "Oh, what did they do with Charles?" And someone was like, "Oh, they put on this tire." And again, it's like even me as a person watching was having like the
why
same
would they
reaction
do
as the
that?
drivers, being like,
Yeah.
the fact that I was thinking that, the fact that the drivers were sort of standing there going, "That doesn't make any sense." It's like, who, like, genuinely, who is making that call? I
I
find that
actually I
so
want to
interesting.
know who sat there in a room and said, "Yeah, we're gonna do this."
The memes are good though. I will, if Ferrari get
Yeah.
that together, I will miss the memes, I've got to say.
I'm gonna miss the Ferrari memes. I can't lie.
Okay, Daniela, do you have anything specific that you really wanna bring up?
Yeah,
I think we need to talk about DR3.
I think we do.
Oh,
There was a big focus on him this season, which I appreciated because
as it should
I'm
be.
just gonna cry just thinking about it.
I like the fact that they, of all the drivers leaving, Drive to Survive gave him the sort of big send off, and I think that's relevant for them because he's such
Yeah.
he carried that show. He was the
I
reason
only
that show
watched
was
that.
going.
I only watched that this morning. I was telling Darine before we started, and I was in the kitchen like getting my lunch ready to take to uni with me, and I was going, "Don't make me cry, Daniel. Don't make me cry. I'm in the kitchen. Any one of my flatmates can walk in right now, and they're gonna see me crying because of you." And I started crying in the
He
kitchen.
went and did
It just like
He
the
went
way
and
that
did
they
it.
did it, like reflecting back on from 2018
Man,
to now.
oh my
I
God.
just
When they
They
did
brought in the
that,
Monaco. They brought in
I
the
was in
Monaco
shambles.
shot
the
of him
Monaco.
falling into the.
I know we're going to do a whole separate podcast about like our favorite race moments and races, etc. But Monaco 2018 for me is my all-time favorite race. It was the first time I properly had watched a race, but also because we used to have it on in the background growing up, but I never really sat down and watched it. But that was the first time I did. But as we were Daniel fans, like that was like the most amazing thing was seeing him win Monaco. Like that was just the most incredible feeling, and I don't think I'll ever forget that. And when I saw it on Drive to Survive, I was like, oh my God, like that's such like I would have been like 16 at the time.
Yeah.
But it feels like it was a really big part of my like teenage years. I don't know why. It just always has, like even before I properly became an F1 fan, it really resonated with me. And so every time they bring it back in Drive to Survive, it almost makes me feel nostalgic.
I have a much less cool memory attached to that, and it's the absolute, that clip of him falling face first into the pool has done such a service to the editing community.
Yes,
so many good edits thanks to that clip. Honestly, you know what? Like that's one good thing that Netflix has done.
It is such a good shot and a good moment. And yeah, I thought they gave him a good tribute. I thought it was a respectful tribute. I think he came out of it because he said at the end that he thought he carried himself well and he gave it his all. And I like honestly couldn't agree more. Like he clearly has given it his all and he has carried himself well. Like there is not a person alive who doesn't respect him, I don't think.
I think he is one of the biggest like fan base. Like I think he has one of the biggest fan bases within the world of Formula One. And any person I've ever met who said they've liked Formula One, they've only ever said good things about Daniel. Yes, even when he was going on his downhill with McLaren, it wasn't going good. But everyone says like he's such a genuinely nice guy. I can vouch for that. He is. I met him. He didn't have to be nice to me. But he was.
But he was, because that's just who he is.
It is who he is. And when he was talking about in Drive to Survive about his smile and how he always says it is genuine. It is. I know it is. I've seen that smile before in real life, and that wasn't a fake smile. That was really genuine.
I think it's hard to sort of like you can't be fake and get that many people to like you and genuinely like be interested in you and like care about you. But also I was just thinking, speaking of Monaco, the whole thing with Red Bull and Checo and the crash, and this sort of relates to to Brazil, which we're going to talk about maybe later. But you remember how in Brazil,
we can talk about that next.
Yeah, because I didn't know about this. But you know how, so they obviously left out a lot of Brazil, but I remember when at the end of the Brazil race, when Max refused to let Checo past or something like that, wasn't it the reason that he gave was like, remember what he did in Monaco or something? He said, he mentioned Monaco, and people were going, or like, remember what he, not after what he did to me or something like that. And then everyone was saying,
he just goes, remember he just said, I gave my reasons and I stand by it.
Yeah. Oh, was it that? Okay, I was because people were theorizing that it had something to do with Monaco. That's what it was.
He just says, I gave you guys my reasons and I will stand by it. Don't ask these kind of things from me.
Okay, yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm sure I read like internet theories that it was related to Monaco, and I didn't know what anyone was on about, but I know now because it's obviously that turn.
Yeah, he crashed during qualifying and then he got pole. But it could have been an accident. Like it's so hard. Like you can make, especially on a track like Monaco, you make the smallest mistake and you crash. It's a street circuit.
I've played the game. I was coming first every single race. I was on easy mode, obviously. I was coming first every single race. I hit Monaco. I couldn't finish. I play
easy mode. I play easy mode and I lose every race. I'm so bad at the game. We should do an episode one day where we all play it.
Definitely. It's a great game.
I don't have the game.
I don't have the game either. I use my flatmates. But when we all get in person, Holly has it, don't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we should all do an episode in person and we'll play it at Holly's place.
Absolutely.
In the summer, when I finally move back home.
Yes.
Yeah. I couldn't believe as well just that Checo's wins are all so cool. Like the two races that I remember from him that he won, there's obviously that one where he came from last to first, which is like legend. And then he wins at Monaco, sort of in like kind of terrible conditions.
In horrible conditions.
And I swear they weren't starting from pole. Weren't they starting behind the Ferrari?
Yeah.
And then
they were third and fourth.
Yeah, so they weren't even starting from first, which is like also kind of iconic.
Which is insane. Yeah.
Cool wins to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
wrap up.
Right. Thank you for listening to part 1 of our DTS opinions and thoughts. We hope you'll tune in to part 2.